Well, it's been some time since I've run the exotic Linux distribution known as Antergos. And that's, of course, not true that it's exotic, but the name Antergos sounds exotic. All right, so all kidding aside, Antergos is one of my favorite distributions of all time. It's an Arch-based distribution that gives you a choice of desktop environments at install. So I went ahead and launched into the XFCE desktop, and I'm going to go through a setup process from scratch, what you see when you first boot into Antergos XFCE. I had one little surprise too that we'll talk about, but first, if you're not familiar with Antergos, again, it's Arch based, and the installation process is a little different than other distributions. And now once you insert your ISO from flash drive, you'll get an option here to boot from hard disk or start Antergos live. Once you boot into the live environment, you've got an option to try it or install it. If you choose try it, you'll launch right into the GNOME or GNOME desktop, take your pick there on the pronunciation, or you could jump right over to install it. And that's where things get a little bit different in that you're going to want to make sure you've got an internet connection. And that's because Antergos updates Cinchi, which is the actual installer, to make sure you've got the latest packages and things like that. And it'll also take a little bit longer than a lot of distributions, depending on your internet connection, because it's actually pulling in the packages and any updates from the web as you do the install. So therefore, the install can take a little bit longer. Now, this is the screen where you'll get to choose your desktop environment, and more recently they've added the Deepen desktop as an option. You'll see KDE, Mate, XFCE, Cinnamon, lots of popular options there. You could go with base or a really light open box. So once you've made your choice there, you'll get some other choices, so you can choose whether or not you want to install the AUR or the Arch User Repository. Now that will open up a plethora of software for you. It's literally a giant software universe where you can install just about anything. So or you can choose not to set that up and just go with the standard repositories that are listed within Antergos. Now, if you've got Bluetooth on your system, you can toggle that on. You've got a choice of browser. I believe Vivaldi was removed, or perhaps I just didn't scroll down to see Vivaldi. But also, you've got an option here to install Flash. So once you go through and you make your choices, you're going to be presented with a selection for your, creating your username, creating your password, choosing your language, and setting up your keyboard as you see here. And then the install process will begin. And from there, you'll be presented with a reboot screen, and you can go right into your new operating system and desktop environment as we see here. So, as I told you in the beginning of the video, there was a pleasant surprise when I launched into XFCE for the first time here, and that is that they now include by default the Whisker Menu. And while I'm mentioning that, I'll just tell you that all of the theming and the layout and everything that you see here is pretty well what you're going to see when you boot in for the first time. I haven't tweaked anything, with the exception of you may have chosen, for example, Firefox as your browser, where I chose Chromium. So when we go through the application rundown, you may see a few things different in that lineup. Now, I do want to speak to the Whisker Menu again. It's one of the reasons that I continue to enjoy XFCE, and also XFCE is very customizable, and at first glance, maybe you don't see that, but it can be tweaked and changed to really look modern and remain, a very fast desktop environment. And if you want a good example of what can be done from the theming side of things, take a look at Manjaro or Manjaro, however you prefer to say it, and you'll see a lot of theming and customization in place with that distribution, which happens to be listed as #1 on DistroWatch now, which we all know those numbers don't mean anything, so they say. However, it was refreshing to see that listed as #1 there, so kind of interesting. But the Whisker Menu we'll get into in maybe a different part of the video, so I wanted to give you an overall of just out of the box for 18.5 what you'll see. So let's jump over here to About. We're going to go to All, and About XFCE, and this is version 4.12. And for those of you maybe not familiar with XFCE, what makes up this desktop environment? Well, it's a collection of things. It includes a window manager, the panel like you see here at the bottom, and that, that's what the Whisker Menu is mounted to, if you will, the panel at the bottom, a desktop manager, the file manager, a session manager, a settings or system settings, the application finder, and a settings daemon all make up this really nice, fast, light desktop environment. And also I'm going to jump over here to credits, and I'll just list this, and I'm not going to go through every one here, but I'll just list this out to say, if you appreciate using this desktop environment, you've got email links here where you could go into the core developers or the contributors and just say thanks, or maybe send them a donation for their work, to help them along. So you'll see that long list here. So there's a lot of people involved within XFCE. Now, one of the raps that XFCE gets is that, it's not updated frequently, or there aren't any major exciting things going on within the XFCE universe, but I'll just say that from my experience is that it's really, really stable, and that's probably one of the things that keeps it really, really stable, is while it may be moving slow in terms of what appears to be slow development, and you're not seeing a lot of excitement around it like maybe you would with KDE, it helps to keep things, kind of running smoothly. I mean, never have I run into an issue with XFCE where I've had, fatal crash issues or major updates that have, broken things or anything like that. It's just always been a really nice, stable experience. So next up, we'll take a look at what's installed in the full lineup of software. Now, they do have a light version ISO. It's a separate ISO. I've never installed that, but I guess that it's going to include probably just a basic group of software like your settings, a browser, add and remove software, and then you build it up from there. I'm going to have to try that one day. All right, so we're going to go ahead and stretch this all the way out just for the sake of going through the software. And I won't go into detail on every piece of software here, but just want to give you a good idea of what's included. So under accessories, you'll have application finder, calculator, disk, which is an excellent tool for managing your disk drives. The HP device manager is set up, so if you've got an HP printer, this makes it easy. A great screenshot tool, a task manager, the Thunar file manager, which we'll take a look at in this overview portion, and then XFburn. Now you'll see some redundancy in the listings of the software as we go through. I'm going to skip over development. We'll go to graphics, and you've got here a document viewer primarily for PDF viewing, and then the Ristretto image viewer, which is, it's really nice, it's light, and it does a very good job. It's fast. Under Internet, this is where you're going to see possibly some differences. I chose Chromium. You may have chosen Firefox, so of course you'll see that there. And you've got transmission here to set up any BitTorrent management. Or if you want to set up an SSH server, or browser rather here, you've got this for your SSH server. Then on to Multimedia, Parole Media Player, Pulse audio control here, which is always good to see. Now I did install Simple Screen Recorder so that I could do this video, and again you've got XFburn here, again redundant. And then under Office, so I did not choose LibreOffice. I wanted to check out the latest free Office, and so I'm kind of going to go through that. Probably will later install LibreOffice and maybe even WPS and just do a refresh on how these three compare. It's been a while. And then next up is going to be settings, and this is the area where you're going to find the most listing here. Everything from accessibility to add remove software, appearance for customization, set up your desktop background, configure your display if you've got multiple monitors and things like that. That's the setting you're going to go into here. File manager, which again is Thunar. Keyboard settings, so if you wanted to set up shortcuts and things like that, you'll spend some time there. Moving on, mouse and touchpad, same here. You can go in and configure things just like you would with Windows and Mac or any other OS. You could set up your notifications, what you see, what you don't see. Your power management, if you're working from a laptop, maybe you want to go in and change what happens when you close your lid or what happens when you hit the power button, things like that. Session startup manager, a settings editor, a settings manager, and the ever important software update. Now this is one of the things that you'll probably want to go into and check, but again with Antergos it's doing a lot of that updating during the install, so chances are you're not going to find anything at first boot. Then let's move on down here. You've got a window manager and then window manager tweaks. You could go in and set up different effects and things like that. If you're someone who enjoys working with workspaces, you get it? Working with workspaces? Okay, it's a terrible joke, I apologize. But you could go in and set that up here. You'll see it in place on the panel already. And then we have the ever important terminal. And then last but not least here you've got system, and you'll see some redundancy again here with add remove software boxes, which is what I set up. And just a side note, I tried to get Antergos to run within boxes, and maybe I'm missing something or didn't have something configured properly, but it would fell out on me. I was going to go through the actual install process as opposed to the slides that we saw at the beginning, because it is a slightly different way, or it's a slightly different install process than some of the other distributions out there. Moving on down, you've got HTOP, and I'll go ahead and launch into this. I'll just tell you that at cold boot, it's showing 2 gig right now, but you know I'm recording. I can tell you at cold boot it came in at 446 or something like that. Very light on system resources for sure. All right, and then launching back in and going back to system here, you can manage your other printers through cups here, and then I think everything else is pretty well redundant. So that is your full lineup, and in keeping with this video purpose here, which is really just an overview of what the latest rolling release version of 18.5 looks like with XFCE, we're going to jump over just so you can see the file manager. And so Thunar is probably my second favorite file manager. Maybe it ties a close second with Nemo. It is fully configurable for the most part. It's going to have the ability to change the view, which we'll take a look at here. We'll go through some of the overviews. You can add actions. You know, you can zoom the icons in. For the most part, I think the average user will find that it is fully capable of meeting all their requirements. Now, I'm going to say, you know, Dolphin is more configurable, but there have been times that Dolphin has actually slowed down under heavy copy and paste operations, and I think they've addressed that in the new 15.3 version of KDE Plasma. However, I've never experienced that with Thunar here. So let's jump over here to View. I'm going to kind of skip around a little bit. You've got 3 different views: icon view, which we see here, detailed list, as well as compact list. Now you can zoom in on these different lists. So let's go to icons, and if we chose to, we could zoom in, or Control Plus. You'll see the keyboard shortcuts, and we can go in, and I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the keyboard here, and as you'll see, well, I say I am, perhaps I'm not. There we go. Get the right combination of keys there, Rob. But anyway, you can zoom in to a rather large size here. Now that's where things are a little bit different, in that the spacing and everything that you see here is not something that we can change. And as soon as I say something like that, I know one of you astute viewers will say, "Oh, Rob, what are you talking about? You can address the spacing within Thunar, and here's how you do it. So please share that if you know how to do that." I just haven't found it. But let's go back over here to File. You could create a new tab, and many of you I know like working with tabs, and I myself work that way, where you can bounce from one to the other via tab. So we could create a tab here with music and then bounce right back over. So you get the idea there. You can create a new folder, create a document or an empty file, open the terminal from here, go right into Properties to see file size, detach the tab, close all windows, close the tab, or close the window. Next up is Edit, and from here you could select all, select by a pattern, and so you could type in your pattern here and choose Select, which is a nice feature. Configure custom actions, and this is one of the things that I really appreciate about Thunar, is you can choose custom actions. So you know, maybe you've got a particular series of things that you want to do when you choose that folder. You could set that up, choose appearance and conditions, and put that in place. So, that's a really nice feature to have there that you don't see on every file manager. Next up, if you go to View, you could reload the view. Go to Location Selector. So this could be a path bar style as opposed to the toolbar style we see here. So we'll change that. You'll see that looks a little different there. The side pane here on the left could be a tree view. So that's the change there. Go back to shortcuts. And some of these other options you'll see here, we've just gone through here, which is zoom out, zoom in, arrange items, so you could sort by name, size, type, ascending or descending, and the show hidden files option is here as well. Now if you right click on a folder, you're going to have options for open, open a new tab, open in a new window, send to, cut, copy, paste, move to trash, or delete. So the delete command is already in here. You could rename, create an archive, or if you come from Windows, that would be a zip file out of that particular folder. Open the terminal here or go right into Properties. And then under Go, we see Open Parent, and then this gives you a redundant selection that you see here over on this panel. Or you could browse a network from there, as you see here as well. And then under Help, let's go to About, and this is Thunar version 1.6.15. So I don't know how recent that is, but that's what it is nevertheless. So, overall, I think for most users out there, for the common user, you'll have the ability to set this up and use it and be very happy with the Thunar file manager. Alright, so let's move on over from there, and one other thing to wrap the video up. We're going to go over to Settings and give you a quick look here at the Settings Manager. So this is your default Settings Manager window, if you will, and it keeps things in categories. So you've got Personal, Hardware, System, and Other. And so this will allow you, and you saw some of this in the list, but this is one area where you can come and get everything. So instead of searching around for it, it's going to be listed here under categories. So you can go right into Appearance or Desktop Changes, File Manager from here, Notifications, Panel, Preferred Applications, Window Manager, tweak that Window Manager, set up your workspaces again, and jump right over to the terminal. Under Hardware, if you've got multiple displays or you want to set up keyboard shortcuts or configure your mouse and power management, it's all right here under one window, if you will, under one complete, quick, easy access area. So that is your main settings window. Well, I'm going to wrap this up, and my next video for this will be getting into things like changing the look of the XFCE desktop. Now, I've done this in the past, but I'm going to kind of go through this process anew and maybe add a few things and get into a few more details on things. So if you're into XFCE or you're interested in XFCE and what it's all about, as well as Antergos and Arch-based distros in general, then just stay tuned for more videos in this series. As always, thanks for watching.